Hello and welcome back to the Godot community. I am Jody Ann Henry and I am the Middle School Theater PLC moderator. I am so happy that you have decided to join us for our last webinar for the 2020-2021 school year. It's been a pleasure serving as the Middle School Theater PLC moderator. For this webinar, I will be discussing some reflection practices and ideas on how to plan for the next school year. Firstly, I want you to take a second to stop and think about the school year, the challenges that we have faced, and we sure have faced a lot of challenges. The discoveries that you have made in teaching on a new platform, going from virtual to hybrid, whatever your classroom setup was for this school year, but just the different changes that you've experienced, the things that you have learned in working with your students. And now looking back, we are at the end of the school year. I want to take this time to reflect on my own personal experience. Now, the importance of self-reflection is it gives you an opportunity to focus on your teaching. It also allows you to take a second to think about the things that you love about being a theater educator, the areas that you love. It allows you to highlight your strengths, highlight the areas of success, as well as pinpoint the skills that need to be improved. It allows you to focus on the things that you have learned over the school year, and also being able to take a second to breathe, relax, and reflect allows you to avoid burnout. Because especially after this school year and all that we have experienced, it's tiring at the end of the year, more so than ever. So being able to really assess what worked and the things that you learned and what needs to be improved allows you to realize that it hasn't been all bad. Also, just being able to really self-reflect allows you to become a better teacher. Because again, you can figure out what didn't work and now you can improve on them next school year. Now, I'm going to share with you some of my yearly reflection process and practices. I like to journal. So I have a notebook that sometimes, especially towards the end of the semester or after a long day of teaching or working on a production and I'm really frustrated, I like to sit down and just write, reflect on the project itself, the outcome, my students' responses, how I'm feeling, what I'm proud of, things that I could do differently. So here are 3 questions that I ask myself. What was successful? What made it successful? And how I can improve? And these are 3 questions that you should also ask yourself at the end of the school year. What was successful about this school year? Having to adjust the curriculum to a virtual setting, for myself, having to teach students online, as well as having students in class in person with me. What are the transitions and techniques that I use to be successful and to make it work? The things that I struggled with. Looking at engagement. Was I able to keep my student as engaged as I would like? And also looking at those practices, those classroom management, those engagement strategies. Well, how can I improve on that? Now, here are some things that I think were successful for me. I'll just highlight some of those things. So some of the highlights of the school year, I had a student who was nominated as our district-wide performing art star, Charles Jones. And I was particularly proud of him because despite the constant shift in learning platform, virtual and back in person, hybrid. He was able to stay dedicated to his work, to his performance, to working on his performance skills, and was able to receive that award. Also, I was particularly proud of my ability to put together a Black History performance video with all my classes, with the students that are in person as well as online. Last year was my first year at the school that I'm currently working, and I was really proud of our Black History program, and I wanted to keep that tradition going. So being able to, in some form, still continue and carry that on, I would consider was a highlight. I was still able to assign each class a performance project. So I had students directing scene work and working on monologues and doing dances and poetry by different African American poets. And seeing that come together and being able to share that with my school was really something that I'm proud of. Also, another highlight and the success thing that I think went well, I had my students they did a film project. So they worked individually to write their own screenplay, and they were able to direct and perform the script. Now, in a traditional setting, the students would work in small groups and they would write a play and they would produce it as a part of their end of semester showcase. Now, the students are all in different places. I struggle sometimes with attendance. I have students who are inconsistent. So being able to work on a large group performance in class seemed to be a struggle for me. So I had a student who suggested, Miss Henry, well, the radio play assignment we did last semester worked out really well. And this is where the students, they wrote a short scene, and each scene had to have two characters, and they played all the different characters within their radio play by adjusting their voices to fit the characters. So I thought of it as a great idea and a challenge for them in characterization and having to portray all the different characters in their short film. It also gave me an opportunity to talk about the difference between performing on stage and then performing in front of the camera. So this became an excellent project. Again, I was trying to modify this assignment for the platform that we're using now, and it turned out to be a great learning experience. Also, the students had the challenge of editing these videos, and they found it really exciting to play around with the different edits and things they could do on an iMovie or any other video editing app. It was also a learning experience for me because we were teaching each other about the different resources and editing programs that we find out there. So that was a major success and a learning experience for both myself and the students. Also, I was really proud of being able to bring teaching artists to my classroom and to have workshops. I really like to give my students a hands-on experience where they're also working with professionals. I love to bring other people in the classroom. My kids love to see a new face, and it's exciting to watch them just have experience with someone else besides myself, bringing the material and the curriculum to them. So despite being virtual, being able to continue to do that, I would consider a success for myself. So I had visitors from True Colors Theater as well as Full Sail University, and I was able to develop a partnership with Full Sail University for the next school year to continue to make visits to my classroom and do workshops with my students, as well as provide professional development opportunities for myself. I'm also excited about having two of my students who participated in the August Wilson monologue competition to make it to the semifinals. So this is my second year being at this school, and I really wanted it be my second year to provide my students with more performance opportunities and to get them involved with different types of theater and activities that's going on in our community. So whether that's through competition or workshops or internships. So still being able to do that this year in some way, I would say that's a success for me. Now, things that I believe I would need to improve on would be being able to assess my students in a quick manner. It's so much easier to assess your students' growth in their performance, and having to watch them work in groups and collaborate and create in person in the classroom. You can quickly do that through observation, assess their skills and their growth through observation. But with it being online, I found it quite challenging because a lot of students did not want to turn their cameras on, so I'm not able to have that in the moment, just looking at body language and looking at how they work with each other. So finding the different ways to assess them has truly been a challenge, and I am now reflecting on if perchance next school year I am in a hybrid situation because we're not exactly sure what the school year looks like, how can I adjust them to do that more effectively? Yes, I believe using rubric and allowing the students to assess their peers. They would record a video of the performance and we would watch it, and they would be able to assess each other's performance, really help them to build vocabulary, and it also helped them to be able to articulate what exactly worked for an actor in their performance and things that they need to improve. So assessing in that way, I think, worked because the students they were able to articulate what they liked and didn't like. Because I tend to have students who are like, oh, that wasn't good, that was good. But being able to have a recording of the performance where they can sit and take time to watch and easily assess, that I believe worked well. But being able to assess them myself in the moment, to help them in that final performance for me was a challenge. Now, after doing much self-reflection, looking at what worked, what I would need to change in terms of my classroom setup, in terms of projects, my curriculum pacing, the types of materials and plays that I would have my students read, the production season, the performance platform. After much reflection on those things, it is time for me to sit down and make decisions about what changes that I would need to make for next year. Now, some of these decisions are really hard to make because, again, I'm not aware of the students who will be in my class next school year. I am not aware of the platform, whether we're going to be virtual, hybrid, what the schedule is going to look like, if all the students are coming back, if students will have the option. I am unaware of those things. So that poses a challenge for me in planning for next school year. But regardless of the situation, I think it would be helpful for me to consider the different options in terms of setting up my classroom to still maintain some sense of social distancing guidelines, as well as utilizing the space in the best way possible so I can have a seating area where students are able to sit down, collaborate in groups, as well as provide a space for the students to perform and to move around the room. So I have made some adjustments, slight adjustments from the way I set up from last school year and for this school year, which I think work. I am hoping that my class size remains generally the same. Otherwise, I would have to rearrange. But with the class size that I've had consistently, having my chairs set up around the perimeter of the room and leaving the center of the room worked well for me because they're able to, for sightline reasons, they can see the board as well as move around and perform, and they're able to work in groups without necessarily being on top of each other and distracting each group. So those are things I'm considering for next school year. What adjustments do I need to make? How many kids I'm going to have and how I'm going to keep or maintain that space in the classroom. I'm also thinking about different projects. Now, this school year, I was challenged to integrate more technology in my assignments and in the curriculum in general, which at first was a struggle, but I found it to be excellent. The students loved it. Modifying the different projects to fit the platform really worked well, and I think I would like to keep some of those things, whether or not we're in person or it's hybrid or complete virtual. I think allowing the students to use shared documents such as Google Docs or OneDrive, Microsoft Word, being able to create a document and share it with each other, I think that works well. The previous year, students would handwrite. They would write out their script. They would have a hard copy notebook, but being able to create an interactive notebook where they can write all their things and they can share with each other worked really well. Also, I think this allows me to have at least a digital portfolio for each student, so I'm able to compile their work, especially for my students who are now in the beginning level class and are going to follow through till they graduate. I'm able to keep an archive of all their performance assignments, their scripts that they have written. So using more of that platform is really like, why didn't I know about this earlier? It makes it so much easier. Also, allowing students to record and film and edit. I would love for them to have that experience of performing live, but I think also teaching them that difference between acting for camera versus stage has been a great experience, especially for those students who have been on stage before and are used to performing for a live audience. Having this new experience has been really, really great for them. So little things like that I would love to continue to integrate in the curriculum. My next thing is planning for the curriculum and the pacing, especially because I found that this school year there were some topics, some standards that I really didn't get to address as much. So in looking at how to fill those learning gaps for my students, I was not able to cover a lot of technical theater because I'm not able to take them in the booth and show them how to set up the lights and sound and costume design. I wasn't able to do much of that. We're able to talk about and discuss those things, but the hands-on experience of it, those students did not get. Whereas students who've had me before have been introduced to that and have been able to work on those particular projects. So I'm really taking the time to go through and see certain things that I was unable to teach this year and how I can fill those gaps in for my students when they have me again. Again, some of my students who may have me for that beginning level class had me first semester of last school year and may see me again. So they're not seeing me on a continuous basis. So being able to track students who may have me for the intermediate level next year, did they have me this 2021 school year or did they have me the previous year? What they know. So really going back and assessing and making sure that I'm filling those learning gaps is something I really have to consider when planning for next year. Also, another thing that I'm considering is planning for my season. How do I select the plays that my students will read in class, and how am I selecting the material that we will work on for the fall and for their spring production? I am also considering the performance platform. Again, I don't know if it will be in person or hybrid. I'm not exactly sure. So really considering whether or not we're doing live performances or whether I'll have to continue to look at using Zoom. And this year, I did not have a full length or one act performance. We did the Black History showcase that I shared with my school, as well as my students had end of the year film projects, which I also shared, but not the large fall and spring productions. I was able to watch a lot of those and have conversations with my colleagues who had the opportunity to work with their students on building some type of virtual performance. So I'm able to learn from their experience and seeing how I can apply it to next year if needs be. Now, here are some things to consider when deciding the school season. Things that I would take into consideration: are you using a production class versus an after school drama program to perform and cast a show? And it's different. For me, I found that the after school drama club, it's stressful. I struggle with students actually staying consistent to drama club. So casting a show and making sure that all your actors show up after school. And sometimes they become inconsistent because they're involved in so many other different things and they need to commit to one. And sometimes they're trying to juggle all of them so they don't show up to every rehearsal. Also, I find that I have more time with the production class to work on the show versus after school. After school, we're only there for maybe an hour and we meet certain days a week, whereas a production class, we're meeting at a specific time 5 days a week. So I'm able to get more rehearsal time in. With the after school drama club, sometimes again, students' attendance can become inconsistent because of lack of transportation. So there's so many different odds and obstacles that I meet when trying to rehearse a one-act play or a full-length play through my drama club, but I still want to be able to give those students performance opportunities. So deciding what activities I should reserve for the drama club versus using the production class to put on those major performances. Um, Last school year for our Black History program, it was a class assignment. So each student either worked as an actor or choreographer, they directed, they worked in the sound booth. It was a student ran production that I monitored, that I managed. And it was great, and a lot of students had a lot of fun working on it despite the process because it was stressful. But being able to put all the things that they have learned in class and the smaller projects to now be putting on a show for the entire school student body, it was exciting for them. So I like to use the class to put on those types of performances because, again, I can use class time to work on it. The students are getting a grade for this assignment, so there's some type of incentive and reason for them to be dedicated to working on the production. Another thing to think about: do you want the performances for the season to be devised theater? Is it something that the students can write and produce themselves? Of course, with you as a teacher monitoring, or does it have to be a published work? Does it have to be a play that's already been published and you're purchasing the rights to put on? Or you can really have your students write short scenes, write monologues, write a one-act play as a class together and produce it. One year we were looking at different social issues, and I had my students first discuss, they talked about it, they were able to break out into groups and write small scenes relating to this social issue, and it became a wonderful project that eventually led to us writing a one-act play about this particular topic, which we then presented to the school during an assembly, which became an excellent project because it led to discussions within our school body about this issue as well as other social issues that we face in our communities. Also, a part of your season, do you want it to be a student showcase? Especially for your sixth graders, your beginning students, would you prefer to have them present performance projects that they have worked on in class and allow that to be an evening of theater where they present that for family and friends and the entire student body? Also, you want to consider, depending on your district, are you having live performances or are you having to do virtual performance where you're probably recording the performance and then streaming it, posting it on YouTube or whatever platform and sharing it? Or are you performing live on Zoom and having people join that webinar to watch? So deciding what platform that your district or school may allow is another thing to think about when you're planning your season. Also, thinking about different one-act plays and different musicals that you would love to do, as well as musicals and one-acts that you think your students would be interested in. Those are just things that I am now planning and turning around in my head, trying to decide what exactly do we want to do for next year. At my school that I'm currently working on, I've never done a musical. So that would be something different, and it would be a challenge collaborating with the music department at my school, and especially since everything is up in the air, figuring out how would that work, being able to collaborate with the musical director to put that musical on, or whether we would prefer to do pieces or numbers from a musical. I'm still figuring it out. Another thing to consider would be your cast size. Thinking about how large you would want your cast to be, looking at the number of students that you have in your program and being able to cast them for certain potential roles. For myself, I prefer to keep it as a small cast size. Again, I don't know the students who will be in my class next school year, so it puts me in a more safer space to not choose a play that has a large cast. I am able to have the students who are currently in my class read the scripts out loud just to hear what it sounds like. And for me, it's like a mini audition, really. Also, you want to consider your skill set. What are your students able to do? You do not want to pick material that's way too heavy for them to do. It might be something that you really enjoy, but it might not be appropriate for your students. So again, looking at your cast size, as well as looking at the skill sets and the students that you have available. Now, lastly, in deciding the season, you may want to make it theme-based. That might help to narrow down the plays that you would like to select. For myself, I particularly like to expose my students to works that are written by African American playwrights, just to add some diversity to the material that I'm exposing the students to. I'm being a little more conscious about that. So I would, whether or not these are plays that we're reading in class or actually produced, I would like to look at those types of scripts first. But again, you can decide whether it's theme-based, topic-based, what you would like to introduce to your students, and use that to help you narrow down the material that you would select for your season next year. And good luck. Now, I want to take this time to really thank each and every one of us as educators for sticking through, putting in the hard work to ensure that our students have the best experience, learning experience this school year. It has been a challenge modifying our lessons and modifying our curriculum to fit this platform. I know personally for me, my classes are usually hands-on, project-based. We're working in groups, we're on our feet, we're creating. But finding a way to maintain that type of classroom culture in this setting has been a challenge, but I have learned that despite all of that, I can maintain that type of classroom culture, and the use of technology in my class can enhance the learning instead of being a hindrance. Thank you for those of you who have joined and have been a part of our PLC group here on the Godot community. If you're just joining in, don't forget to check out the discussions. There are other videos that are posted under the discussion section. There's a wealth of different webinars and topics that can be found there. Also, for extra resources in regards to lesson plans and assessment strategies and rubrics, etc., you may find those under the document section on our middle school theater page. Don't forget to keep in touch, leave comments, leave questions, leave ideas under this webinar. I would love to hear about what worked for you for the school year, what challenges you face, what worked, things that you would love to improve on. Let's continue this conversation. So feel free to reach out to me using the discussion board section under the middle school theater group. Also, continue to keep in touch. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel. So continue to reach out so we can strengthen each other, we can work together and create phenomenal learning experiences for our students. Again, thank you for tuning in and listening. Bye-bye.